thank you guys for sticking with us. We had a little bit of an audio difficulty, and we'll go ahead and get started. I know most of you probably didn't even hear Dick's intro. I know I couldn't, but Dick was talking about how, it's been kind of a hectic springtime for all of us. Well, it's always a very hectic springtime. This one especially around the country because unlike last year where everything started very, very early, this year everything started very late. So, it's very difficult to kind of, keep things in line here. And I'm looking at my questions come in. There's a couple other people who still can't hear. And unfortunately, I think that's probably on your part, not on our part, because we've made the adjustments. But we're recording this, and actually we recorded all of the difficulties in the beginning, and we'll post it later on so everybody can see it. But so the point here, guys, is to talk about how we've kind of gotten through our busy season, or the so-called busy season in lawn and landscape. And I think at this point, or at least up to by Memorial Day, you will have kind of made all of the program sales that you're going to make at least until this fall. When you look at a graph or a chart of how your program sales kind of fall, they're obviously going to begin in January, pick up in February, spike in March, absolutely go off the charts in April. But in May, they fall apart. You don't make a lot of new program sales after the end of April and into May. And perhaps this year it was a little bit different because things started a little bit later. But for the most part, your program sales have kind of stopped at this point. So what we want to talk about with today's webinar is how do you keep that new sale or that revenue per customer growing throughout the course of the year. And supplemental services or or upsells or optionals, whether you're in a lawn care fertilization type system and program or a landscape maintenance company, there's always ways to continue to grow your business beyond just that initial spike in new program sales. So that's what we wanted to talk about today. And what we'll do is review these couple of issues. What exactly are upsells and supplemental services? You always need a plan. If any of you have talked to Jonathan or myself in the past, and I know many of you have, probably most of you have, it's always all about planning and budgeting, how to get the message out in regards to these services, and then keeping track of things is always important too. Jonathan, why don't I throw it over to you for a minute, and you can give us a couple of opening thoughts too.
Sure. So I think it's a really strong topic, and it has been. So I'm in a different market than you. I mean, I know you guys are all over the country, but for me specifically, I'm in the southern market in Texas. So we've absolutely seen a really unique season weather-wise this year that's massively delayed the selling cycle or changed the selling cycle. But just as you said, whether you're selling maintenance or lawn care, there's this massive peak of customer acquisition, especially at the beginning of the year. And so I think one point that many have probably already heard before, but I think it's one of these key marketing things to always keep in mind and kind of pound into your head, and that really speaks to this issue. There's three major ways to grow revenue in a business. And one is we can go out, we can find and attract new clients, which, as we all know, is one of the more expensive approaches, and that's our big spring selling season opportunity. The second is we can raise the prices on our clients. That'll grow revenue. And then the third is the one we're focused on here, and that is we have this opportunity to sell more work to our existing clients. And one of the topics that I'm interested in is one where it's a topic of guys that go in and they do business turnarounds and they fix companies. And it's an interesting topic to me. And the one thing that they generally focus on when they come into a new business, other than fixing expense problems and financial problems, is they look for hidden opportunities in the client base. So they don't generally go into a new business and say, okay, we're going to fix this company by selling tons of new work. Rather, they go in and they say, here's our bucket of clients that we have. What are the underserved opportunities with these clients? And how can we fix this business by growing revenue with the clients we already have? And that's a very common way that they turn around companies. And I think that's very informative for us. And so I think, Tom, that'd be my main point here, just opening this up, is for all of us to really keep in mind that this is one of the major strategies for growing our businesses. And if you want proof that it's a major strategy, look at the guys that have the hardest job, the guys that have to go in and fix businesses that are about to go out of business. And this is exactly what they focus on.
Yeah, and I think with that point in mind, too, Jonathan, we always need to acknowledge that some of the biggest challenges that we face are really the fact that we can't get too wrapped up in the everyday operations of our business to lose sight of things like that. For many of you who are beyond just a small lawn or landscape company, once you get to a certain point where you've got employees on the road and you've got operational issues and things break and you're trying to make sales and you're dealing with human resources, things like that, you can't, if you want to continue to grow your business, you cannot get wrapped up 18 hours a day in those issues. You have to be able to step outside of those daily operational issues and take a look at your business as a whole and acknowledge the fact that these sort of challenges exist, that if you want to continue to grow your business, and when we say that, we're talking mainly growing top-line revenue, making more gross sales, increasing your revenue per customer. And just like Jonathan said, it's an incredible opportunity to grow significantly. And if you're too wrapped up in the daily problems of running your business, and there's no doubt that, again, in a spring like this where the challenges were more than normal, you can lose sight very quickly of what that means. So, with that in mind, let's go ahead and start talking about what these optional or supplemental services really are. And what I wanted to do is kind of talk about the ones that I know, the ones that I deal with and talk about and try to sell on a daily basis. So over the course of my career, I'm currently running Be Safe Lawn Care and previously Lawn Dog. Actually, I think I'm going to jump out of this PowerPoint and actually just go to those websites. And Jonathan, perhaps maybe we can do the same thing with CityTurf and literally just talk about the actual services that we're talking about upselling. And hopefully everybody can see this. And guys, by the way, feel free to go ahead and ask questions anytime. I know that Jonathan and I can kind of tend to go on, and we obviously at times go off topic, but we found that it's always beneficial. But if you want us to stop and focus on one particular thing, stop us and ask a question. Go ahead and type it right into the console, and I can see it, and we'll be happy to answer it. But when I talk about supplemental services or optional services, what I mean in the lawn fertilization business is things that go beyond our regular 6-step program. So I want to talk about things that don't necessarily fit into the standard program. So to drill it down really to specifics, in lawn care, we're talking about things like ant, flea, and tick control, which our customers, love. Everybody is kind of on the topic of ticks right now because it's been such a kind of a wet spring in a lot of places. Ticks are really bad, and there's lots of stories on the news about Lyme disease and things like that. Aeration with overseeding. Grub prevention. Grub preventative is always one of the biggest upsells you'll ever be able to offer. In most parts of the country, people are pretty afraid of grubs. And pH adjustment, meaning doing a soil test and adding lime or even gypsum or sulfur to go the other way. These are the core supplemental services that we sell here at Be Safe. But when I was preparing this, I thought I'd go back to Lawn Dog, where I started Lawn Dog, a long time ago, and I no longer own it or even work there. But I figured it might make sense to go ahead and see what they're working on now. They've added a couple more optional services: a wetting agent, which is a good way, especially in drought seasons when there's lack of rainfall. They're also offering surface insect control, and they've split that up from the ant, flea, and tick program. Aeration with overseeding and grub proofing, limestone. They offer an additional preventative crabgrass control preventative, and then at the end of the year they'll typically tack on a winterizer. Jonathan, what do you guys suggest that would perhaps fall in, away from the typical lawn fertilization service, but to more of a landscape management type upsell opportunity?
So on that side, especially on the maintenance side, you have a lot of companies that they're mixed between maintenance and install or design build, and so you clearly have if you're a maintenance company, you clearly already have the trust of your client, or at least you hopefully do, and so the design build construction, that's without question an opportunity that you really can see that all throughout the year. You have your spike in the spring, but that can be solid year round. Especially this time of year, you can be stacking up the orders and having somewhat of a backlog to perform work in June and July. But the smaller stuff is going to be your flowers, installing your flowers, installing mulch. So one of the fastest ways we found to make clients happy and get a testimonial and really make them feel like you've quickly transformed their property is simply to trim the bushes, install mulch and flowers, just freshening up the beds. And it's a more affordable service. And once they've experienced it, and especially if they entertain or they have family coming in around holidays, it's an opportunity to really sell that. And once they've experienced it and seen how quickly you can make the property look better, then you kind of get into the idea of increasing frequency. So first, I'll say that you have your flowers, you have mulch, you have irrigation, you have your bush trimming, you have your landscape. We are in pest control, so we've got pest control, sprinkler repair, all of those types of things. Now, the other thing to think about here, in addition to the services, is frequency or the number of transactions. So as an example, right now, after you've sold your clients, let's say that you have some biweekly mowing clients that have come in, and going through spring, especially if you're having rain, or now you're fertilizing the property and you're starting to get some growth on the property, now's a good time to go back to the client and promote the health benefits of mowing weekly and the aesthetic benefits of mowing weekly. So don't forget also about the opportunity to increase frequency. If you have a client that is biweekly, convert them to weekly and give them reason to do it. If you have a client this will vary by market, but if you have a client that trims their bushes once or twice a year, how can you get that up to 3 or 4 times a year? And I realize, again, in some of the northern markets, you're going to have a lower number of visits. But down here in southern markets, we could have a typical client that trims their bushes 3 times a year, and with a little bit of promotion and speaking with them, we can get that to 7 times a year. And so really, too, think about frequency in addition to what those services are.
Yeah, and actually there's a couple questions about that, too, in regards to frequency. A couple of guys are asking about the schedule in which you upsell these particular services, and I think we'll talk about that a little bit moving forward. But one thing that a couple of these guys have mentioned here is a tree and shrub program, and as we go through the services that you can typically offer, and I've gone to the CityTurf site here too to show some of the things that you just talked about, and going back to Be Safe here, I don't consider a tree and shrub program an upsell. So I'm going to spend a couple minutes on this because there are a couple of questions, and I think it's kind of important. When I talk about revenue per customer, I typically begin by tracking the main program, meaning the main lawn care program, or in maintenance it might be mowing, because that serves as sort of the anchor for everything else that you do. But I don't like to consider tree and shrub an optional or supplemental. I almost consider that another anchor, because you can basically bill services throughout the course of the year. And one thing that I always love about this particular business model is the predictability of the numbers. So when I have some historical data in terms of what I'm doing with lawn care, I know exactly what that revenue per customer or what that average square footage is going to be, really down to the penny, and it helps me to budget future sales. But to answer the questions about tree and shrub, I think that should serve as more of an anchor in your business. Obviously, it'll be less than your lawn care service or even your mowing anchor service. But I don't think you should treat it as an upsell or a supplemental. It should be separate from those and serve kind of on its own. Again, I keep repeating myself, but as an anchor. Jonathan, do you guys do a tree and shrub program at City Turf?
We actually don't. We actually we have partnered and recommend that service out. We do turf and we do the year-long ant treatments and all those, but we've not done. I don't disagree with anything you said, but for us, we've ignored some things just out of pure focus in our business, and we're actually moving in that direction, but we're not offering it in full right now.
Well, you want to know what? I'm kind of glad you said that. And we noticed this happened a couple times in the last webinars that we're agreeable on a lot of things. When you want to talk about focus, in my experience at Lawn Dog and even here at Be Safe, that tree and shrub program kind of has in the past created a little bit of a loss of focus because exactly what I just said. You really want to have it on as a standalone issue, or a standalone service. But it's never going to grow as much as you want it to, or as much as those other core services. So, let me suggest, be a little bit careful with that. You want to have it kind of separate, but don't allow it to lose focus from your other core services. Now, that's different if you're an actual tree company, and I know that we might have a couple of tree companies on the line today. There's lots of questions. That's why I keep hesitating here. But okay, so tree and shrub, it's a different animal. It's something that you want to handle, with care, and you don't want it to lose focus. So let's take a couple minutes and talk about budgeting and planning these services.
Tom, before we do that, could I interject a quick point?
Yeah.
Yeah. So one of the things that this may just be of help. One of the things that we've learned over time here, and if you were to look at the front of our website, you'll notice that though we have a fairly diverse product offering or service offering now as we've matured as a business, we really still pound on 4 services. In our case, it's mowing, lawn care, so fertilization and weed control of the turf, irrigation, so sprinkler repair, and we specifically in the southern market use the word sprinkler repair, not irrigation, and then 4th, pest control. Now, we offer all these other services, mulch, flowers, all these other areas. So what we've tried to figure out in our business is what are the bigger profit centers? What are the services we most like that contribute or have the potential to contribute the most profit to the company? And we focus on those services. So if you look at our marketing or you look at our trucks, our big box trucks, they only talk about 4 services. They don't list 18 services on the side. Our direct mail lists the 4 core services. And now when we speak more directly with the client or we make recommendations or we might mail to them an upsell or we might have an email offer, we might promote something more specific such as flowers. But rather than having a message that is somewhat watered down by constantly trying to promote the 15 things we can do for them because they can't remember 15 things, we promote the 4 most important things. And we have found that by simply saying mowing, sprinkler repair, pest control, and fertilization and weed control, and using that exact language, they then tend to assume we do bush trimming, flowers, mulch, and landscape. And so we often will get the call for those other services, even though we don't always specifically mention those. So thinking in terms of a little bit, talking about focus, thinking about what are those core services. And 2, Tom, if you look at the front page of City Turf, so if you go back and click on the logo and then scroll down, something worth noting is taking that concept even a step further. And so once that loads, scroll down just a bit there and towards the bottom, and notice there, lawn maintenance, pest control, sprinkler repair, they're just below the Google, Yelp, and Yahoo. We've actually gone as far as for pest control and sprinkler repair to create specific websites specifically for those services. So we have our lawn care site, but then we also have a pest control site. We also have a sprinkler repair site. And so if we're doing any pay-per-click or Google AdWords advertising, rather than sometimes running our main website, we'll advertise, or when the client, or excuse me, the lead clicks on the link in Google AdWords, they'll go straight to a site about sprinkler repair or about pest control because that's the exact thing that they're most worried about in that exact moment. And they're less concerned if we can mow the lawn. All they care about is, can you fix my sprinkler? So really narrowing in on what are those things, and turf and ornamental may be part of it. What are these core services? really simplifies your communication with your prospect and even with your client, because the biggest problem we all have is we keep finding out that, you know, our clients, they go and hire somebody else because they forgot that we offer the very service that they needed, and they don't call us, they call our competitor. So how can you simplify your message and your service offering and communicate to them more clearly? And so that goes a little bit to the concept of focus, and I think it's really been a valuable one for us.
Yeah, and I think there are more than a few people on the webinar today chiming in with that exact point in terms of making sure you know what your core services are, and then offering supporting services to kind of go along with it. And that's reflected in some comments I'm getting from people right now. And one person put that you have to know what your bread and butter is
Yes.
to be able to be successful, and then kind of promote those additional services. But as you were saying that, it reminded me of a metaphor that I forget who it was. I'm not going to be able to take credit for this, but you have to be careful about the way you sell those additional upsells, because you can quickly kind of confuse people. And the oil change metaphor comes up. And so many of you guys can probably relate to this. When you go in and get your oil changed, you know, one of those drive-through places where, you know, you just need to get your oil changed. It's sort of a nuisance, but you have to do it. How many of you get annoyed when you go in there and you pull up and the guy comes over and, you know, all you really want is that $19 oil change, but all of a sudden he starts hitting you with literally like dozens of upsells right at the point of that initial introduction. When you say, I just want my oil change, he says, well, we can do your windshield wipers, we can, you know, change your transmission fluid, we can do this, we can do that. How many guys get annoyed with that, you know, with that situation? And I know I do, and I don't want to go back to that same place. I literally will go someplace else. Keep that metaphor in mind as you begin to kind of build these supporting services. People don't want to be overwhelmed with these things all the time. If you annoy people and you kind of come off as that, you know, that salesperson that is consistently upselling things, you're going to hurt yourself. So the timing of when you introduce these services is important too. You don't want to swamp people with them all at the same time. So I'm kind of glad the direction that we're going here, because we've determined that you need your focus services, you need your core services, or as John put it in the comments here, your bread and butter. You need to know what those are, but you can consistently grow your top line revenue by having those supporting services too. So what I did here, this is just a document that for the VSafe guys who are on, you've seen it, you know, hundreds of times. When we talk about planning at the beginning of the year, and when you're doing your budgeting and preparing for the following year, it's so important that you identify what those services are, and you create goals for the services that you want to sell. And this particular worksheet, you know, this is one where we talk about growing new sales. This is a budget that takes a new company from 0 customers to 450 customers. But these are the supplemental services that we're going to upsell. So the reason I want to do this is because I want to give you a little bit of an idea from my own experience what you can expect to sell if you do it the right way. So in a lawn care budget, not a maintenance budget, when we're selling lawn care fertilization services, we can plan to sell these supporting services: spring aeration, ant, flea, and tick control, grub control, limestone, fall aeration, and fall aeration with overseeding. If you'll notice, I don't have 50 different things here. I think you want to stay away from getting too scattered, and you want to deal with your core service and then your supporting services. So when I'm writing this particular budget or worksheet, I know that if I have round revenue in this case, and again, this is just an example, this isn't anything specific. If I have round revenue, which is my core service, my lawn fertilization service of $194,000, these percentages here are what I can expect my goal should be in terms of upselling. So I know that as long as I offer these services to my customers, and we'll talk about that in a minute too, I can expect 1% or less than 1% of my round revenue to come in as spring aeration. So if I'm doing round revenue of $194,000, I'll multiply that times 0.85 to get $1,600 in spring aeration. It's not a lot. In a lot of cases, you want to almost try to avoid spring aeration. But what you'll notice is the biggest one here, in my experience, is going to be preventative grub control. Preventative grub control is the one supplemental service, and again, I'm talking about fertilization services, that people over the years have really, truly come to expect that they have to offer. So I know many of you guys kind of included in your regular program. I don't think you should. It should be an optional service that you can sell in addition to your regular program. And these are my own historical data type numbers. I know that 13% of this number, or this number times 13%, will be $25,000 in grub control. So what I basically do when I set out to write my budget or my top line projections, and there's so much more that goes into this. This is really just a quick sort of overview of it. I know that grub control, or preventative grub control, is going to be my most, my biggest selling optional service. And in a case like this, I can expect $25,000 to come in from preventative grub control. Fall seeding is another big one too. And across the country last year was a horrible year in terms of weather. There's lots of damaged areas, drought, things like that. You want to try to avoid doing seeding in the springtime as much as you can, because, you know, more often than not, you're going to have to redo it in the fall. So this number might even be a little bit higher this year. And when I say fall seeding, I'm talking about aeration and overseeding. So I know a lot of you guys often want to know exactly what to budget in terms of what to expect. And this is a good sort of indication that, you know, grub control is going to be a big one. Fall seeding is going to be a big one, and some of the other ones might be smaller, but they do add up. And in a small operation like this, where we're only talking a couple $100,000 in revenue, almost $60,000 of it is going to come in from optional services. So, Jonathan, obviously, you know, at CityTurf and even with Service Autopilot, budgeting is a big part of the whole process. So why don't you give us your take on this?
No, I agree 100%, and I think there's two sides to this coin. One is when you sort of alluded to something. I think one, when you're a little bitty company, just getting your feet off, you're just getting off the ground, and it's sort of you and maybe a helper, a couple helpers. You know, knowing these numbers, like you've given somewhat of a guide here, though not exact, but just knowing that, you know, there's two ways to look at this. One is, look how much additional revenue is here by selling a few of these extras. Not to mention, when you can do the fall overseeding or the seeding, you can really have the opportunity to make your client much happier. Like, you could fertilize their lawn all day long, but if they've got damage that fertilizer can't fix, well, you're never going to thrill them, and you're never going to get them talking about you, and they're never going to be ecstatic and want to refer you unless you solve the bigger problem, and you've got to thicken up and basically bring that lawn back. So there's other opportunities here in terms of offering these to really please and make your client very happy. The other thing, that's one takeaway, and again, as you said, look how much money would be left on the table had these numbers not been known and the individual with this business not gone off after these extras. Now, the second thing, though, that's completely kind of polar opposite that's interesting is, when you are the only guy, or you're young in business, or you have a young team, you know, you're just building up the company, if you find that, for example, spring aeration is highly distracting, you don't own the equipment, you feel this need that you have to buy it instead of rent it, you don't really know how to do it, you don't know how to promote it, look at how little revenue that contributes. And so sometimes when you look at these numbers, you also look at them from the standpoint of thinking, we could stay out of this for another year or two, and we could stay completely focused on what matters most. And what matters most is grub control and fall seeding. And we're going to put all our energy and expertise into that. So I find that interesting. And I think those are a couple ways to look at it. I would say, too, on the maintenance business, there's a couple interesting things that I've observed over the years. So you said it correctly. Mowing tends to be a really good anchor service. It's a tremendous service. which a lot of guys don't like mowing, but it's a tremendous service to get your foot in the door and then take the services from all your competitors that are also serving that client. And there's a big move to be what it's been going on for years, to be a mow, blow, and go company where you just have a mowing business. And if you can build route density, then I think there's an argument against that strategy. But where I'm going with that is if you look at mowing as your anchor to sort of mimic what you have here, what you would see in a maintenance business is you would see that a big percentage for us in our business, lawn care is number 2 behind mowing. It's huge. But then if you, forgetting lawn care, if you were to look at this same chart, you would have mowing as your anchor service, and then below that, your number 2 would probably be bush trimming. And then below that, you would have something like hand weeding the flower beds or pre-emerging the beds, which sort of gets into lawn care. But you would have some different services like that on the maintenance side. But I tend to find that bush trimming in especially southern markets tends to be one of those services that if you're competing head-to-head with another maintenance company and they only want to mow and you're willing to mow and hand weed beds and trim the bushes, you can steal that business away all day long, every day. And so that, too, the reason I brought that up is that, too, points to this example here where you have your core service and then you have these additional add-ons. Sometimes offering the add-ons, even though they contribute a smaller percentage to revenue, is necessary. And it's important because that allows you then to secure the business from your client, especially if you're competing in the commercial world. So those are just a few observations that I see on this.
Yeah, and let me, again, the questions are coming in pretty hot and heavy, and thank you guys. I appreciate it, and we will always want to give you the information that you want to hear, so please don't hesitate to type them in, and I'm appreciative of the ones that are. A question that's come up here, and it's a great one because in my experience it's come up a lot. Will you offer one of these optional or supplemental services to customers who aren't on your core business? So if they aren't a mowing customer, would you go ahead and do, annual installation? Or if they aren't a fertilization customer, would you do a one-off spring aeration? And I don't know what you're going to say, Jonathan. I think I have an idea, but I'm not certain. The answer that I'd give you is no. I typically don't want to do that. I typically want to offer my optional or supplemental services only to my existing customers that are on my core service. So only my fertilization customers will be able to get a spring aeration or an ant, flea, and tick treatment. I think it kind of just waters down a lot of your scheduling. It waters down a lot of your efficacy. Jonathan, what's your take on that?
100% agree.
I thought you were going to disagree. I thought you were going to go the other way.
No, I agree, and I'll tell you why. There's only one little exception to that. I'll tell you, going back to the beginning of my business, I copied what everybody else did. I didn't have a tremendous amount of experience in the industry, so I copied what everybody else did, marketing, what services they were offering, what the pricing was, how they wrote contracts. I copied it all. Quickly realized that is not the kind of business I want to own, and so we really changed things up. If you were to have seen our business 4 years ago, we didn't offer pest control. We didn't offer sprinkler repair. We didn't offer a lot of these services. There was a point about 4 years ago that we said we'll only work with you if we can auto-charge your credit card when the work's complete. We don't take any clients that we don't auto-charge their credit card. And we don't take one-times. So where I'm going with that is, back to the beginning of my conversation, I said that we figured out there's 4 core services we most care about: mowing, irrigation, which we call sprinkler repair, fertilization, weed control, and pest control. If you'll sign up for one of those core services, we'll take you as a client. If you're not a mowing client but you'd like us to trim your bushes, we don't do it. If you want a spring cleanup, we don't do it. You have to be and we clearly say it in a very nice way. But if you're not a client taking one of our 4 core services, you're not our ideal client. Just like if you don't pay us with a credit card that we can auto-charge each week, you're not our ideal client. We clearly communicate it very nicely because we want to either win the business or have them think of us in 6 months and come back. The only exception to that is in the winter, or in the very slow time of the year, we will make exceptions at times, and it's if the guy working the phones has a gut feeling this could turn into more. Because in the wintertime, sometimes you don't have you'll get some calls will take the work. It's good for us because it's a slower time of the year. But what we've observed is we've done some little things like wrapping palm trees. We're in Texas, and though palm trees this isn't the ideal market for palm trees, but wrapping palm trees with burlap has resulted because they tend to be in high affluent areas, has resulted in some clients that got an opportunity to meet us, like us, and trust us because their company wouldn't wrap their palm trees. We then win all their business away. So the only alternative to the strategy I just said is only at the end of the year when we could use the additional revenue, and it gives us an opportunity to sort of wiggle in and take over the entire account. But other than that, just Tom, as you said, in spring, there's too much going on in the way of scheduling. There's too much sales opportunity. There's too many things changing and moving. There's too much going on to do anything that distracts from the core focus or distracts us from taking care of our very best clients. And remember, our very best clients buy one of 4 services. That's how we look at it.
Awesome. And it's funny because, again, I appreciate all the feedback I'm getting here, but some guys are questioning our wisdom on that, Jonathan.
I understand.
Because, you know, it's hard to turn something away. If somebody says, hey, I want you to come out and I'm going to pay you money to do this, it's hard to say no. But I hate to kind of put it this way, but trust us on this one, because I think in the long run, in the long term, it's absolutely critical that you don't get yourself spread too thin. And the customers that are going to call and want only one sort of fringe type service are not the type of customers that you want to do business with, and I'll tell you why. Callbacks, write-offs, bad debts. You want to deal with the customers that want to pay you a premium for the service that you offer. When you start getting down to the nickels and the dimes and can you come out and how about the one-time mow? Back when I did maintenance, it was a nightmare. One-time mows are literally, just horrifying. You go out there and the lawn hasn't been mowed in 6 weeks. It's 2 feet tall, and you're getting $40 to do something that's going to take you 3 hours to do. I hate to say it, but I think you should trust us on this one, guys. I think it's really critical that you stick to your core services, identify what those optionals are, and stick to that.
Yeah, I'd add one more thing. I think if you are aware of the topic, so if you're questioning it and you're thinking, you know what, they could be wrong on this one, fine. Just be aware of it now, and then pay close attention. And I'll give you an example. Mowing's a good one, but this is I look at it in fertilization weed control too. You got the client that calls, they want a one-time weed killer. They want us to come kill their weeds one time. So we got plenty of weed varieties that we have to make one or more visits to really truly eliminate them from the lawn. So you go and you make the one visit because they begged you on the phone to do it. Please, all I need is one. I understand it won't work perfect. I understand that I really need to be doing the full program. I just need this one visit, please. So you go do it, and then 3 weeks later you get a call. My lawn looks terrible. You guys didn't do any good. Or if you're charging them a credit card, they do a charge back on your credit card and say, they did a terrible job. And then even if they never say anything, but then when the friend says, hey, who should I use as lawn care company? I wouldn't use those City Turf guys. They came out and did a weed treatment. It didn't work. You never know about what you're not going to hear. And then I'd add to it mowing. Tom, you gave a perfect example. Client calls up. What do? Oh, I need a one-time mowing. My husband's out of town. The lawn's getting tall. But, it's not really that bad. You guys, it won't be that bad when you get here, I promise. And they're begging you to get out here. I got to have you out today because I've got company coming tonight, or I'm showing the house tomorrow. So what do? You juggle your schedule. You move things around. You have 5 phone calls with this person. They call in the middle of the day. Are you guys coming? You're not here yet. So now you've distracted your staff. And who's getting neglected? In our case, it's our client that pays us $2,500 a year is getting neglected, so we can make $40 from somebody that will never use us again, never refer us again. So we're now chasing $40 and potentially harming our other clients.
Yeah, and all the time, energy, and effort that goes along with chasing that $40. It's hard to quantify that too. And Abby here kind of asks a funny question: how do you turn people down nicely? Well, just be nice about it. Just say, I'm sorry, but we only do that service for customers who are on our maintenance program or on our lawn care program. And I think you'll probably generate an estimate from it too. But
You can explain that you really plan. You know, our schedules are very planned out to be efficient, so we always show up on time for our clients so that they see us every day when we say we're going to be there. And because we have to plan ahead so much, it's hard for us to fit in the one time. So we'd love to put you into our regular schedule, and I can guarantee you that you'll see us every time we say we'll be there, and that's how we do it. You know, you can communicate it. You flip that into a benefit, and you're saying, we have to do it this way to honor our promises and guarantees to our clients. And we have found that when we make exceptions, we end up putting ourselves in a position where we can't take the very best care of our clients. And however you want to word that, but you flip it around into basically a benefit of doing business with you instead of a negative of turning down the client.
Absolutely. And again, I'll say it, trust us on this one, because I know I've been there, and that chasing that $40 down, or having my staff, you know, have it go to collections, and the one-time weed control thing, trust me, is going to be a 3-time weed control thing for one charge. So,
yep.
Good point there. Let's move on a little bit, because we're, as always, I want to try to keep this to under an hour, and we're approaching the end, and I haven't covered nearly as, you know, even a fraction of what I thought we should cover. So this is always good, Jonathan. And I just want to say thanks for joining us with this, because we hit on some very important things. But before we wrap up, let's talk about as many ways we can think of to actually market these optional supplemental services. So, you know, right off the bat, I mentioned the oil change metaphor. Don't throw every single service at your new customer on the same day ever, because you're just going to tick them off. So you kind of want to trickle them in over the course of the entire year. So, you know, off the top of my head, the first one I can think of is just the good old-fashioned leave behind. So every time you're doing a fertilization or a mowing or something like that, you should have your core, not your core services, your supplemental services of that particular time of year. So at BSafe right now, guys, what we're doing is we're pretty much, we're all in round 2. But with round 1, let me start there. When our guys go out and they do the first application of the year, they leave a leave behind at every single house they treat. And with that leave behind is some information about 2 services. We always do 2 services per treatment. So with round 1, what we're doing is we're doing a leave behind for Lyme, and we're doing a leave behind for ant, flea, and tick control. And with the Lyme, what we do is we actually take an actual pH test of the soil using one of those, you know, a portable pH meter, not one of the cheap ones, but a good, we use a Kelway. Get the actual pH of the soil, and I say Lyme. If you're in parts of the country where your soil is alkaline, you need to do something else. But so we get an actual pH reading. We leave them a price quote for Lyme, and we leave them a price quote for ant, flea, and tick. And each one of those leave behinds has a description of what that particular service is. We don't force it on them. We don't call them and tell them that they need it, but we use language that suggests that it's something that's very valuable to them. So the first one is leave behind. What do you think, Jonathan?
Absolutely. I'm in agreement. Yep.
How about email blasts? And actually, I'm reading a bunch of questions here, a bunch of comments. Newsletters. You should absolutely be sending out a newsletter to your database. Probably not, you know, not weekly or even bi-weekly, but at least once a month. You know, at least once a month, focus on some core upsell and optional services that you want to put a description on. Actually, they're coming in like crazy. Thanks, guys, for offering these up. Another one is social media. John, I'm going to let you talk about social media for a second, especially as it pertains to these kind of services. How are you guys dealing with that?
Okay, and I can also interject some ideas here as well. So, you know, on the social media thing, I wouldn't describe myself as the expert on social media. Here's why, and I believe in it, and we're spending some money and time on it, but it goes back to what we were talking about. We know what our 4 core services are. We know what our focus is. If you look at our marketing spend and you look at the return on investment and you look at the number of different things we could distract ourselves with, for us, it still works very well to do the old-fashioned direct mail door hangers. It still works incredibly well to do SEO-based marketing, pay-per-click-based marketing. So we do have our Facebook, and we do a little bit on there. And what we find is we do find that it has more of a conversational benefit than it does so much being able to say, we sold 400 more clients through Facebook this year. So we see value in it. It's the future. We're paying attention to it, but we're not experts in it. Where I would say that I really believe in what you might call social media, not that I don't believe in it in general, but where the aspect of social media that I most like, and you could maybe make an argument this isn't social media, it has to do with YouTube and blogs. So, and where I'm going with this one is that communicating educational information to your clients is really important, and usually that's done through a blog. What I like about YouTube, and it doesn't have to be YouTube, is I love the video component. I find that a client that can see you, see your team, realize that you're real people, that you look like good people, that you know what you're talking about, really resonates, and it really allows them to connect with you over all your competitors who have faceless websites that their About Us page doesn't even mention who the owner is or anything. And so I would focus on social media. My favorite aspect of it is the video element and the blogging element. So Facebook, great, fine, good, do it, but I wouldn't spend an extraordinary amount of money on it. I would stay true to some of the direct mail and online marketing opportunities. So that's my take on social media.
Yeah, and I'm in agreement with you there, because it's so difficult to quantify that effort.
Yeah.
I'm trying, but I really don't have any idea, and I'm not an expert by any stretch of the imagination on social media either, and I'm not even sure who is, but it's difficult to quantify the impact that has. I know for a fact that you need to do it, because
Yep.
you know, what's the worst thing that can happen if you're not doing it? Somebody shows up to your Facebook page and sees you haven't, updated anything in 18 months. They're going to say, oh, geez, this company's out of business. So you have to do something. But I think, take your point a little bit further, it's about content, and it's about developing a scenario where you're seen as the expert or the go-to person in the field that people are looking to get answers for. So blogging is huge, and you're probably like me. I struggle. I know I need to blog twice a week. I really should write a blog twice a week, and it's so hard to do it, but you have to focus on it. When a customer or a potential customer shows up on your website or anywhere else, fresh content that is related to what is going on at that particular moment is huge. I guess there's something to be said about driving people to where the content is, and that's a different argument or a different topic altogether. But you must be seen as the expert. So going back to that, the way I started with round one, what we're doing is we're selling Anthony tick and we're selling Lyme treatments. All during that, maybe 6-week period where that round one is going on, and we're leaving those leave behinds. You need to have content published on your blog, on your website, posted on your Facebook about those particular things. It's not difficult to write a quick blog about what Lyme does, or what soil pH means to the health of turf, or something about Lyme disease where we want to control ticks, or what kind of products that you're using. And I can hear every single one of you guys saying that's so much easier said than done, but because I know it is. And Jonathan and I are both in the same position where we're trying to grow our businesses too, and we try to follow along with these particular things as well. But I think if there were one thing that I had to focus on, it would be the development of that content to make sure that you're seen as the expert in what you're trying to sell.
I'd agree. I'd like to, if I could, Tom, add a point to this, and then also made me think of something else. So my first thing is something I missed in the social media category that I can't believe I didn't say, that I think is just absolutely critical, is reviews. So if I getting your clients to review you on Google, on Yahoo, on Yelp, it's incredible. I used to not be as aware of this, but we travel quite a bit. My family does, and so we go to all different places. And I have found, whether I'm in New York or Chicago or Miami or wherever I'm at, I've really realized how much I look at Yelp, and that's how we figure out where we're eating and having dinner. And I've realized how often our clients are saying that we heard about you, or we read this, or we saw this testimonial, and they don't always say it quite that way. But so that's one reason. I think it's absolutely imperative we're getting our clients to review us on these social media sites. The second part of this is, if you think about where technology is going, everything's transforming, and it's going to take years, but we are not going to type search terms into Google one of these days. Rather, we're going to talk to it, or things like Google Now are predicting things to us, and you have Microsoft that's partnered with Facebook and has an investment in Facebook. You've got Apple that's partnered with Yelp. You have Google that has their own Google reviews. They've now bought, I forgot the other one, it's a rating service, I forgot the name. But my point there is they're eventually going to make recommendations through search based on reviews. It's a known fact. And so if we're not working on collecting our reviews right now, one day when we ask our iPhone for a lawn care service, they're going to be recommending a lawn care service near us that has the most reviews. And so think about that. Really, really important. And that's sort of one thing I'm going to add real quick, Tom, to the top of your list that I think is really important is that, oh, and by the way, little tidbit, Yelp is a beating when it comes to get reviews. So when you're getting reviews for Yelp, what you do when you're talking to your client, you say, do you use Yelp? Are you a member of Yelp? And you don't say it exactly this way. If they use Yelp, you ask them to give you a review on Yelp. If they do not use Yelp, do not ask them to review you on Yelp. For CityTurf, we have so many reviews that are blocked. I don't know what the number is, maybe 20 that are blocked and hidden that are legit reviews that we've got our clients to do, but since they don't have friends on Yelp, since they don't often review on Yelp, Yelp won't show any of those reviews. So Yelp is very, very strict. So only have clients that use Yelp review you on Yelp. Otherwise, have them review you on Google or Yahoo or Bing. One more thing. Adding to the top of your list, Tom, where I would really, this is again an administrative hassle in some sense, but I find it to be of high value. Sending your client a welcome package, welcome something that is a wow experience as soon as they sign up for you. No other lawn care company sends it to them. Send them something. We do it. We've been doing it for 5 years. We send them something out of the ordinary. They never expect to get a big package in the mail from us. In that big package, that's your first opportunity to make your first upsell, or it's your first opportunity to capture a testimonial. And so Tom, I believe, is exactly correct in that we want to space out our offerings and our requests for upsells, and we want to do it in an educational way. But your welcome package, in my mind, is your very first opportunity to either get your upsell or your testimonial or your review. And the reason for that is when they first sign up for you, that's when they love you the most. It only goes downhill from there. And not necessarily, it can get better, but they are ecstatic. They're buying you. They think you're hopeful, or they believe you're going to be the best service ever. You haven't even done anything yet to possibly even disappoint them or make a mistake. You have your very best chance right there in that moment to get more business from them or get a glowing review. Again, I'm not saying you can't do it later, but that's your first point, first opportunity to go upsell something to your clients immediately after they buy.
I guess the one takeaway from all of this, and again, guys, I think we're probably going to wrap up. We've been at it for an hour, but based on what Jonathan just said, you have to, if you truly want to grow the top line of your business, and we're talking about gross sales, if you want to make more money, if you want to grow that top line, you have to be able to seek out and use every single opportunity you possibly can. It's so easy to get lazy. It's so easy to get caught up in, oh man, that mower's broken, or it's, I got an employee who's mad, and to get stuck into those daily details of running your business. If you're going to be one of the companies that exceed and go beyond that level, you need to be able to almost exploit every single opportunity to market your services. And you have to do it with intelligence, and that's kind of what we were talking about with the types of services and to not get spread too thin. So you have to do it in an intelligent manner, but find a way to exploit every single opportunity, of course, without being annoying. But the welcome package is a great idea, and Jonathan's so right. You're a hero at the beginning. Now, in most cases, you'll mess up this or you'll do something wrong. It's hard to keep everybody happy all the time. But that's an example of finding a new way to get more sales. literally almost exploit every single opportunity and create new opportunities to be in communication with your customers. So we've gone more than an hour here, guys, and I know I got a ton of questions here. It's going to take me a minute to kind of go back and look at them. But does anybody have anything else in particular they'd like to ask? A couple of people mentioning thank you letters. I guess that kind of goes along with the welcome package. Lots of comments on social media. Maybe that's something we need to explore in another webinar, because it's sort of the great unknown, and as I said, I don't know how to quantify it, and I don't know how to exploit that particular opportunity. I know we need to do something, but it
might be worth talking about. I will say that from our research and from friends of mine that are very involved in marketing and testing, right now, most of the guys I know that are truly getting results, these are guys that actually measure, they're getting their results off of running the equivalent of pay-per-click ads in Facebook, so running advertisements. Those are the guys I know that are generating the most money off Facebook.
Yeah, and that's something that I think is we did a little bit of that here too, using the auto estimator, the My Lawn Quote program, where guys would put a pay-per-click ad directly in Facebook that says you can do your own estimate, we can be there tomorrow, and then you pay for each click. And I didn't even bring it up, but My Lawn Quote is another tool that BeSafe uses all the time to upsell, in-season services. A couple people are asking if we have this webinar every week. We don't have it every week, and I guess maybe we'll use that as a segue to close up. But Jonathan and I, we like to do these. When we first started doing them, we figured we'd do them once a month, but just like you guys, we get totally hung up and very busy with running our own businesses and things. So I think it's been about 6 weeks in between, but we absolutely plan on doing another one. Maybe we'll shoot for a month from now, and I don't know what the topic will be. Perhaps you guys could make some suggestions. But I know you guys are busy, and I don't want to hold you too long, and I know it's been an hour. People are suggesting we do a social media one. Somebody is suggesting that we do actual products with what we use for these types of things. Labor issues. Jonathan, these people want some information from you, man. I hope you're available.
I'm available. I'm happy to do it. I enjoy doing this.
Me too. I really do.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I'm going to wrap it up because I know you guys got things to do, but thank you for joining us today, and we'll get some emails out to you guys. We'll post a recorded version of this in our respective places, and we'll get to you. Jonathan, why don't you wrap up?
Well, now, I would just, I will add one thing, and that is, depending on where you're at in your business, and I can tell you that I am guilty of what I'm about to say not to do, and I've been guilty of it, and I continue to be guilty of it. We are bombarded with 500,000 different things to do and 500,000 opportunities and 5,000 different ways to market. Our job as business owners is to figure out the 2 things we're going to do this year, the 3 things we're going to do next year, the 4 we're going to do the year after that, and we're charged with keeping our organization focused and trying as best we can to figure out the 2 marketing things that are going to work the very best right now, going deep with those, getting them implemented, fixing them where they're underperforming, and then once we have that up and running, we have somebody on our team that can actually get the welcome letters out, somebody on our team that can actually make sure the door hangers go out. Then we add the 3rd thing. Then we add the 4th. And if we do 5 things and we do all 5 things in a mediocre fashion, then none of the 5 things are going to work very good. So I just really exhort you to, and I'm guilty of this one, try to block out as much opportunity as possible, pick a couple things, focus on them, and then move on to the next thing, and you'll find the business grows faster that way. So other than
Absolutely.
that, I just say thank you very much to everybody, and I guess we'll talk again in a month.
Yeah, sounds good. Thanks, guys. We'll wrap up, and we really appreciate you being with us today, and hopefully we'll see you again. Have a good afternoon, you guys.